Kenshi. A post-apocalyptic world where only the strong survive. Vicious predators and hostile factions run rampant. If it doesn't kill you outright, will just enslave you or otherwise exploit you. Any civilized societies are corrupt and immoral, built on the foundations of slavery and inequality. Those who fight back against the harshness and injustices of this world will often just fall in the process. Though, with enough training and dedication, one might just find the strength to do it. Before any of that, though, you're nobody. Some random drifter with nothing to their name but the clothes on their back and maybe a cheap weapon. Well, that's the average start anyway, but Kenshi doesn't always smile on its inhabitants. And for some, they don't even have that. Meet Grumble, a Hiver soldier who's having just about the worst day of his life. After the rigorous character creation process that saw unspeakable horrors beyond human comprehension, Grumble found himself alone in the Great Desert. No food, no clothes, no money, no weapons, and no left arm. Grumble is, for lack of better words, in a bit of a pickle. First things first, he scans the horizons for any signs of civilization, and, sure enough, he spots a city in the distance. Running over, he makes it without issue, which is quite lucky considering some of the horrors that lurk among the sands of the Great Desert. He makes his way inside and immediately books it to the bar in order to find some food. Of course, Grumble is completely broke, and the cities within Kenshi aren't exactly known for their charity. Now, Grumble could do the responsible thing and find a legitimate way to raise some capital and buy some food that way, but Grumble isn't exactly a responsible little bug man, so instead he's gonna steal. Heading upstairs, he finds an unguarded chest, and he goes to lockpick it. A couple peasants come upstairs, but luckily they don't seem too concerned about the one-armed fellow crouching in the corner. Unfortunately, Grumble is comically bad at stealing, with an only 31% chance of getting away with it. This chance was lowered even further when a hive prince decided to sit right next to him, so he had to find somewhere else. Luckily, there's a second bar in town, so he just made his way over there and hoped for better circumstances. Now, one thing to note about Kenshi is that stealing is much easier when you pick up an item that's not in a container, as all that requires is that nobody sees you. Whereas, stealing from a container requires a high thievery stat in order to nab the item without making any ruckus. With that in mind, he saw some chew sticks on a table that might make a good snack. Unfortunately, the guards would not disregard the squatting stick man, so this wouldn't work either. But hark, a local skimmer wandered way too close to the city gates and is being taken out by the guards. Running over, Grumble found a treasure trove of raw and foul meat, which, as a hiver, is nothing but good eating. He grabbed everything, including the claws, which sell for a fair amount, and went on his way. After having his first snack in who knows how long, he sold the claws in a local shop and finally has some cats to his name. And, because he now has a respectable amount of meat, he can save his money for something other than food. Things are finally looking up for Grumble. Immediately, Grumble looks around for other animals to have the guards beat up, and sure enough, a couple sand ninjas are picking a fight with some Garu. He sneaks his way over and finds a ton of leather and meat, which should sell for a decent amount. The other Garu appears to be making an escape, but it's so weak that Grumble might be able to take it down if he can find a weapon. Unfortunately, there aren't any weapon shops in town, and by the time he realizes this, the Garu is basically gone. Grumble then recalls a hive village not far from here that should have some cheap replacement arms for him. Given that he's pretty much terrible at everything, Grumble does laps around the city training his athletics in order to properly run away from any threats that might face on his way there. Before he leaves, he finds another skimmer that was fighting the guards, so he loots it and sells the goods. With the money he's gained, Grumble finally decides he needs some help, but since the local bars didn't have anyone looking for help, he hit up the local slave shop to see if he could liberate any help. In Kenshi, you can't just buy slaves and have them join your party, which is probably good because, slavery's bad. Instead, you buy their freedom, and there's a chance they might join you of their own volition. He frees a fellow hiver named Jarvel and hopes that he'll have an extra pair of hands and help out with the harsh world, but unfortunately, he has a family and a life to return to, or something lame like that, so Grumble's left to watch him fade into the desert wind. Once again, Grumble is alone. Perhaps Grumble's bare cheekedness scared away his new friend, so he decides to buy some cheap clothing to better present himself to any future allies. He gets some cheap pants and a gi, which actually increased martial arts a bit. Perhaps he could overcome the odds and become the greatest martial artist the world had ever seen. With his newfound stylishness, he was determined to become stronger, and to do that, you need strength training. First things first, he'd mine some ore to carry around. This would increase his strength and make his punches a lot more impactful. Unfortunately, I realized it was only a copper vein, which isn't as heavy as iron, and there didn't appear to be any nearby iron veins, so we'd have to look someplace else. I decided to mine a little more, just to improve his skill and have some extra cash from the ore, but he got attacked by a couple very convincing beggars who thought Grumble would look a lot better with a dent in his skull. Chances are he could not handle this fight alone, so he tried to lure the vagrants to the guards so they could help him train combat a bit. but they ran off and decided they had better things to do, so didn't want you anyways. Stupid. At this point, Grumble just decided he should focus on getting that arm, so he headed north. On the way there, a couple jerks thought they could capture Grumble and pass him off as an escaped slave to make a quick buck. Thankfully, their heavy metal armor made them too slow to catch up with Grumble's glorious one-armed stride, so he made an escape no problem. This would actually happen several times on his way to the hive, with manhunters constantly chasing after him, but each time he managed to outrun them. As he was passing their city, Grumble figured he could get the guards to help him with the lunatics that were attacking him, but actually, they didn't give two hoots about the assault, just watching as he ran past, like they were just standing right there. It got even worse when the manhunter managed to land a blow to his leg, slowing him down even more and making running no longer an option. To add insult to injury, a group of local bigots started chasing him around as well, flinging insults at him while he had to shake the slaver. He ran to the bar, but of course nobody helped him there either, and things would just go from bad to worse. He ran to a local shop hoping that they might help, but wouldn't you know it, it was a slave shop, and they worked together to take Grumble down and enslave him. They took away his dope outfit and left him on the floor bleeding out to recover. And now here lies Grumble, beaten, chained, lying on the floor of the slave shop. If anybody asks what peak Kenshi vibes are, it's this. After a while of just lying on the floor, he woke up and was put in a cage. Now we just wait and see what they do with him. After a while of jamming out to some sick music in his own head, Grumble attempted to lockpick his chains, something the guards were surprisingly cool with. It took him a while, but every failed attempt only made him better at lockpicking. Unfortunately, he was not skilled enough to leave his cage, so he'd have to bide his time for a while longer to find a better chance to escape. Eventually, a slaver caravan came to gather Grumble and ship him off to some slave colony somewhere. Although, this could be the opportunity he needs to get away. Some of the slaves revolted, slowing the pace of the caravan a bit. During this, he found a dark spot to hide in as he picked his chains and made a break for it. Unfortunately, they spotted him, but he should be faster than the caravan guards, so it looked like he was about to be home free. Until... a crossbow bolt lodged itself in Grumble's left leg, slowing him to a halt and allowing the guards to catch up. Once the samurai showed up, he knew it was just about done. They beat him within an inch of his life and threw him into his cell, not even bothering to bandage his wounds. Grumble would lie there, unconscious, caged beside another dead prisoner who still had an idle animation for some reason. Slowly, his wounds worsened, and Grumble succumbed to his wounds, all next to some uncaring Hiver soldier guard who had no qualms with one of his own— Oh my! That genuinely actually scared me a little bit whenever that first happened. I don't know where they all came from. And so ends the story of Grumble, the world's unluckiest hiver. What was his crime? Wanting to live, I suppose. Kenshi is ruthless, unloving, and in the end, deadly. This isn't always the case, though. When the world needs them most, heroes will rise up. With enough training and dedication, one might just have the strength to do the impossible in 5 yards. You may just build a city where people can go and never go hungry. Raise an army and gear them with the finest weapons to protect your people. Will you change the world and be the hero, or fall to the evils that plague this world and be forgotten? And that's Kenshi. Also, check out these floating tents and benches I found. That's amazing. I love that. That's great.